I hate to disappoint you, especially right off the top, but as you might have guessed, I don't know what the future of news is. So if that's what you came for, you can skip this one. Go get another cookie before Patrick LaForge comes on. But I know news has a future. Of course it does. People like to know what's going on, and they like to share that information with others. They like to talk shit. That's how Lainey Liu puts it. I also know that people in the news industry are trying. We're trying, and with some desperation, to figure out our future. We're testing out a bunch of different possibilities, hoping we can find a magic combination that we can make enough money so we can keep working in this amazing business. Because news might want to be free, but news reporters, news editors, news developers, no thanks. Speaking of free, let's get the paywall out of the way, shall we? Last month, Postmedia, which owns the Edmonton Journal and several other major news companies in Canada, extended the paywall that was already in place at the Montreal Gazette, the Vancouver Sun, Vancouver Province, to the Journal and the rest of its properties. Now, you get 10 free articles a month on the website or the apps before you're asked to pay. Reaction has been mixed. And to those who have already signed up, I want to thank you from the bottom of my mortgage. Do I think paywalls are the future of news? No. But they might be one of the possibilities. And today I want to talk to you about several other possibilities that I think show real promise. I call them, as you might have seen, the 7 C's. Where's the thing? There it is. There it is. There it is. I call them the 7 C's because I like wordplay, and especially alliteration, as anyone who's ever edited my writing knows. And also because I read somewhere that if you put a number in your headline, people are more likely to click on it. I've given that advice to many reporters. But, going back, before we get to the future, someone else did this today. Let's take a trip back to the past, to the good old days of newspapers. Let's use the Edmonton Journal as an example because, well, I know it best. I've been there for almost 20 years. Back in the day, the Journal was the only game in town. If you wanted to know what was going on in Edmonton, you took the Journal. And if you were in business, that's where you advertised. It was the best way to reach the biggest audience. Until the Edmonton Sun came along in 1978, we had no real competition. That's pretty much how it was when I came to the Journal in 1993 as a summer news intern. I joined a staff of almost 800, 180 of them in the newsroom. Here's what it looked like. I'm gonna get this. There's a Degrassi junior high shot for you. And that's me, if it doesn't animate. But the internet, there we go. I remember thinking the internet would be, oh yeah, we had 2 reporters at the courthouse, 3 reporters and a columnist at City Hall, and even more at the Ledge. Every desk in our newsroom was full, and I can assure you it isn't now. I remember thinking the internet would be a boon for our business, and it has been. It's made us better reporters, it's extended our reach, and it's given us amazing storytelling tools like Twitter and Storify, and of course, cats. Oh, it's a GIF. It's supposed to animate. But the internet also destroyed our monopoly on distribution. Now, we can all be publishers. Get yourself a free WordPress theme and you're on your way. And when a service or commodity isn't scarce, we all know it's a lot harder to make money off of it. This affected advertising, of course. It was our main source of revenue. With the rise of Craigslist and similar services, the profitable newspaper classified ad business was completely eroded. Print advertising dollars became digital dimes, and now mobile pennies. What we make on mobile advertising couldn't keep a hipster in horn rims. I don't have the Canadian figures, but the newspaper industry in the US, oh, there it's going to animate. Sorry. There we go, slides. The newspaper industry in the US has lost more than $40 billion in the last decade. And where did it go? Online, of course. Google's ad revenues are now more than twice what the newspaper industry brings in. So you'll see that blue line going up, that's Google. Digital ad sales. And the orange line going, that's my business, newspaper print ad sales, and that sad little green line at the bottom, newspaper digital sales, not quite making up for the losses. I don't know how much less the Journal makes now than it did back in the good old days, but here's what I do know. Fewer than 300 people work there now. And when we close down the Eastgate plant at the end of the summer and shift printing to the St. Albert Gazette's new press, there'll be fewer than 200. And I think that number's going to shrink even more. So, potential employers, you'll find me on LinkedIn. But wait. This isn't about sympathy, it's about context. I just want to tell you the kind of challenges that we've been facing. Before, we didn't have to operate like a business. We didn't have to think about, journalists particularly, didn't have to think about advertising, that dirty money-making side of the business. In fact, there was a strict separation between church and state. With very few exceptions, the people in advertising didn't speak to the people in the newsroom, and vice versa. To do so was viewed almost as collusion. It was a threat to our journalistic integrity. Back then, we knew how many papers we sold every day, but we had no way of measuring which stories were actually read. And that made it easier for us to convince ourselves that we knew best what readers wanted from us. So we went by our guts, and we thought they served us pretty well. In its heyday, the Journal newspaper was read by more than 400,000 people a week. Now, even with a zillion other information sources to choose from, 600,000 people a week find us in the newspaper, on their computers, on their tablets, and on their mobile phones. As you heard me say in the video ahead, monthly traffic to our mobile site surpassed traffic to our desktop site, the one that you see on your computer or your tablet most often, for the first time this year. And it's that people are digging into the long-form stuff, the lengthy features that really surprised us. We were expecting it was going to be the quick hits, weather, sports scores, crime headlines, that kind of thing. And it was Jana Pruden's story, you heard me mention it, I'm going to put it up here again, that really shone on mobile and really pointed out this trend to us. This story, which I encourage you to go and find if you haven't read it yet, it's about a man who killed his father after years of the father tormenting him and his mother and his other brother. On the mobile sites across the Postmedia network, 577,000 page views for this story in March, and a collective 861 hours of time spent reading it. I think that's amazing. And this is a very long, 7,500-word story, about 10 to 12 times longer than the average news story. And why wouldn't we read long, sometimes complicated stories on our phones? They're our go-to devices, our favorites, sometimes our only way of accessing the internet. And have you noticed how those little screens are the same width as a newspaper column? I think great journalism like Fear on the Family Farm is still a solid bet for the future of news. It's one of the 7 C's that I'll put my money on: content. Content, as Bill Gates and others have famously said, is king. But I don't think the best answer for publishers is to serve up more content. We all have stacks of books and magazines on our bedside tables and downloaded ebooks and PVR TV shows that we haven't had time to read or watch, right? We need kick-ass content that's worth paying for. Have you seen the New York Times Snowfall or The Guardian's Firestorm? Both told fascinating stories with video, audio, and words in an immersive, almost cinematic way online. They're beautiful, and I hope we see more of them. I hope I get to make some like this. But let's be realistic. How many newsrooms have the kind of resources that the New York Times has? They put several staff and several months of work into the making of Snowfall. And here's a sobering fact. You've heard of Nate Silver. He's the American statistician, mathematician, who developed a system for predicting the performance of Major League Baseball players. And then he took that system and he applied it to politics. And in 2008, he correctly predicted the winners of 49 out of 50 states. In the 2012 US national election, he got them all right. Nate's blog, 538, which now lives on NewYorkTimes.com, has pulled in more traffic in a single day than Snowfall has since it debuted in December. So while content may be king, characters can dethrone it. That's my second C, characters. Writers like Silver, or if you'll their students to cultivate their unique perspective, to write with conviction and accuracy. Newsrooms, too, should be encouraging writers to develop their personal brands. It looks good on us. It's their passion and their personal take on topics that attracts readers and keeps them coming back. I think it really plays into the culture of recommendation that's grown up around social media. If my friend likes it, it must be good. And sometimes, if Paula Simons likes it, it must be bad. Either way, readers are engaged, and that's good for business. That's why I would argue that the traditional unsigned newspaper editorial has had its day. Again, we have no way of knowing how many of them are read in the print newspaper every day, but online, they attract a tiny fraction of the audience that flocks to opinion pieces with a name attached. And that's where a lot of the active commenting and commentary in social media goes on as well. We just can't afford the unsigned ones anymore. They're a quaint vanity from our past. But that's just my opinion, like everything I'll say today. A useful segue into the next C. Customization. Increasingly, news publishers are thinking about customization. Yes. They're trying to figure out a way that we can collect, curate, and deliver news in a way that's specific to certain devices and their users. Let me give you an example. Let's say there's a snowstorm. You're familiar with those. That story might play out moment by moment on your phone as commuters are making their way to work and dealing with slippery roads. Later on, you might be checking the website from work, seeing what the accidents are, that kind of thing, maybe what the progress in snow clearing is. Still later, you're at home, pick up your tablet, and you can revel in the best pictures of the day. And the next morning, your newspaper has an analysis of the city's snow clearing policy and whether it's working well. Then there's customization of content based on the user's location or other factors like weather. So you're walking by the Art Gallery of Alberta, you might get an alert on your phone that says, hey, would you like to read Fish Grakowski's story about the piano exhibit? Or you're in the LRT station. It might ask you if you'd like to participate in a poll about the best route for the southeast leg. Or you might get, it's sunny, you get an ad for sandals, or a coupon for iced coffee or a milkshake. We can also make it possible for users to customize their own news experience, to choose the news that they want delivered to them. And we should encourage this. You can use apps like Zeet, or the Globe and Mail has its dashboard. If there's a dark side to user customization tools, it's that they make it even harder for us to close our eyes and our ears to opinions that challenge our own. And they also diminish serendipity. And isn't that one of the great pleasures of news? Those unexpected stories that surprise or delight or provoke. Okay, let's get to number 4. Curation. None of us have enough time, really, to find and filter the most relevant and reliable news, to cut through the shit that litters the internet, to distill meaning from so much noise. That's curation, and it's one of the jobs that the news media can do. The best ones already are. Do what you do best, and link to the rest. That's what the media commentator Jeff Jarvis first told publishers in 2007. Link to the best information, professional or no. Link to the best commentary on blogs, on social media, in other publications. There's a great recent example of curation on gigaom.com. Just a few hours after Glenn Greenwald's story broke in the Guardian about the US National Security Agency's secret surveillance and data collection, the Canadian journalist Matthew Ingram started systematically tracking the developments. Ingram isn't doing original reporting, but he's adding value by collecting the best reporting and commentary that is going on. He's like a one-man wiki, and by doing so, he's become a reliable source, he and his site, that people keep coming back to. At the Journal and many other mainstream media outlets, the software we use to write and distribute content online makes linking out more difficult than it should be. But I think a bigger barrier is newsroom culture, proud and protective. More linking out will mean that we don't do as much original reporting. And that's the journalist's ideal. It's what we love. It's what we got into business to do. And when we do, we need to make sure that it adds value by providing context or analysis or providing a forum for conversation. And the best conversations involve collaboration. Collaboration can be internal, between reporters or across large news organizations. A good example is the Panda Project. It was developed by some journalists in the US. It's a Google Drive-like database where you can store, search, and clean up data sets. And you don't have to be a data wizard like my friend Lucas Timmons, who introduced Panda to the Edmonton Journal last year with the support of our editor-in-chief, Lucinda Choden. Lucas put all the data we had about contributions, donations to provincial political parties into our Panda. And that made it possible for us to quickly search for individuals and corporations to see whether they donated to more than one party and how much. Imagine if all of the Journal's reporters put the data that they collect into one Panda, or all the post-media reporters. We'd be able to see patterns that might never otherwise be revealed. It would be an amazing, powerful archive over time. Collaboration can also be external, such as when a newspaper publishes the work of a contributor who isn't on staff. And sometimes this is a way to make up for staff cuts that have reduced coverage in particular geographic areas or areas of topics. Or it can be a way to make up for a lack of expertise in the newsroom, such as The Guardian's remarkable stable of science blogs. Or look at Capital Ideas at the Journal. It's a network of, there we go. It's a network for local business people and entrepreneurs to share advice with one another. External collaboration has been harder for news organizations, who've been known to think that indie news sites and writers are not quite good enough. They worry that an association with non-professional journalists will somehow dilute their brand, or they just don't want to send the traffic off their own sites. I don't like to say it, but journalistic hubris has kept us from embracing a lot of the audience and revenue opportunities that collaboration could provide. Hubris has also been a roadblock to commerce. For the past 5 years or so, a new competitor to the traditional advertising model of the news business has been gaining ground. Many media types dismiss it with the same irritated, disdainful air as they did online classified ads about a decade ago, and we know where that got us. Sponsored content, sometimes called native advertising, is content that's created by or in concert with an advertiser. Often it's presented in a way that makes it look a lot like regular editorial. The theory is that users are more likely to click on it if it doesn't look like an ad. Sponsored content tends to command rates 2 to 4 times higher than banner ads, so everybody's doing it. New York Times, BuzzFeed, Forbes, Globe and Mail, you name it. There's no question that sponsored content is a threat to the news business. The best of it will draw even more eyes away from traditional news. And if we trick people into clicking or blur the line between advertising and editorial too much, we won't be able to maintain their trust. But it also presents an opportunity. Brands have a problem that publishers can help solve. They need content, and they're not experts at creating it. We are. Why not repurpose or repackage the content we've already created for use on advertisers' websites? Or why not work with them to create engaging content that also serves their ends? Not in hard news, but in areas that have traditionally been given a feature treatment rather than critical or investigative. The Journal did this with Taste Alberta, where we partnered with the Alberta Livestock and Meat Agency to produce a series about food that's grown, produced, and processed in Alberta. Dozens of stories about great farmers and restaurants and businesses, and a real contribution to the vibrant conversation around local food. More recently, we worked with the Alberta Emerald Foundation on bringing stories about the province's leading environmental stewards to readers. We could even take commerce a step further, and this would be a big stretch for big media. We could do what Lucy Yeomans recommends and make it possible for readers to instantly buy the products they see and that in our pages or on our website. Yeomans is the longtime magazine editor who left Harper's Bazaar to join the fashion e-tailer Net-a-Porter. And she says, if you're going to show readers products in your stories, then they ought to be shoppable. And why not? When a story initiates a sale, publishers can and should profit. It's a way that we can be useful to our readers and to our clients, and we can help support our own and other businesses. I think the key to success with sponsored content and other adventures in commerce is on clear labeling and clear disclosure of the commercial relationships that exist behind some content. We can't afford to damage our credibility with consumers. You heard that, didn't you? That's my last C, credibility. The news media's credibility rests on our providing fair, accurate, and relevant content, and on admitting and correcting our mistakes. But I think it also rests on our reflection of and our participation in the community. Legacy media survive on the relationships we have built with our audience. For the Journal, that goes back more than 100 years. Together, we have cried in sympathy and laughed in joy. We have. We've shared silliness and shame, failures and triumphs. We're part of your past, your present, and I hope your future. We will fail if, after all we've been through, we're too proud to change, to adapt to this tough new reality. We will fail if we make you feel like nothing more than a paying customer. Our success is in continuing and extending our commitment to Edmonton. It's in presenting local news, but more than that, it's in engaging people to participate in that news. We're not just a megaphone. We're a microphone, and we have to listen. Thank you.